What is up, you guys? Sydney here, and welcome back to my channel. So if you are new here on my channel, I really like to educate you guys on nutrition, training, and mindset to help you reach your goals in a healthy and sustainable way. So if you do enjoy my content, please be sure to give this video a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button below. But with that being said, let's just go ahead and jump into today's topic, which is going to be calories versus macros. Which one should you track? What's better? Why would you choose one over the other? So that's what we're going to be talking about today, because I get asked this all the time. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this video and enjoy. Let's get into it. I want to start with just talking about calories, then we'll get into macros. You guys will see why I wanted to do it in that order. Also, if I look down, I do have some notes on my phone because I want to be sure that I hit everything that I wanted to touch on. So when it comes to tracking calories, with tracking calories, basically you are controlling your energy in versus energy out. So calories can be looked at as just energy. Whenever we look at that, so let's say that you are expending 2,000 calories a day, and let's say that you are intaking 2,000 calories. That's going to put you at a maintenance energy balance. Well, let's say that you're expending that 2,000, but you're intaking like 2,400 calories. Well, then you're going to be in that slight energy surplus. And then third scenario obviously would be if you're expending 2,000 a day, taking in 1,600-ish a day, then you're going to be in that calorie deficit. Now, the point to create a calorie deficit and all of that will depend on the person and where your specific maintenance is, which a calculator can't really do for you because it doesn't account for anything like diet history, etc. I have other videos on that. I'll link some below for you guys to check out. But essentially with tracking calories, that's what you're tracking. You're keeping track of that energy balance, your calories in versus calories out. So that can be a great starting place for sure. It's a really good way to just see, okay, am I overeating, undereating, eating enough for my performance, etc. But the ratios do matter, and that's where macros come in. So when we look at macros, I think a lot of people see macros and calories as these two totally separate entities when really they go together, because essentially tracking macros is a more detailed form of tracking calories, if you will. So when we look at macronutrients, those are going to be the carbs, proteins, and fats in the foods that we eat. So obviously the foods that we eat, they do have calories, but what makes up those calories? So what makes up those calories is going to be the carbs, fats, and proteins, the macronutrients in the foods that we're eating. So when we look at the different macronutrients, we have carbs, which are going to be 4 calories per gram. So for every single gram of carbohydrate, you're getting 4 calories. Protein is the same. So for every gram of protein, you're getting 4 calories. And then fats, for every gram of fats, you're getting 9 calories. So as you can see, if you are, let's say, tracking your macros, well, you're still tracking your calories because the macros have calories. You're basically just, instead of tracking one big number, you're breaking it down into 3 different things. If you are, say, adjusting your macros, you're also adjusting calories. I know I've had clients ask me sometimes, like, I'll adjust their macros and they'll be like, oh, are my calories going up too? And I'm like, yeah, if our macros are going up, so are our calories, because let's say that you were eating, we had you at 1,800 calories, and then we're like, okay, let's add 15 grams of carbs. Well, 15 times 4 calories per gram, that's adding 60 calories onto that. So now you're going to be at 1,660 calories. So they kind of go together. It's honestly a very simple concept. I just think a lot of people don't have that education behind it to actually know that that's what's happening. So if you're just starting out, again, sorry, I'm going to be looking at my notes a little bit so that I don't miss anything. But I think that protein should be the very first thing. Like, if you've never tracked macros and you've always just done calories, I think that protein and calories are a great starting place. So tracking calories as well as protein before you get into tracking all 3. So protein is going to be the one that I say to start with, because it is so important. Not only is it going to help you stay more satiated, because it is a very satiating macronutrient, aka helping you feel full, but protein is also really important for body composition. So when we look at protein, it's going to be really important for building muscle. It's going to be really important for recovering. It's going to be really important for maintaining muscle mass, like in a cutting phase, or like especially if you're a newbie, maybe seeing some body recomposition, putting on muscle while losing body fat, which is what most people want. And protein plays a really big role in that. It also has a ton of other benefits just in terms of like your bone density, hair, skin, nails, like all of these things. Protein also has a role in that. It also has the highest thermic effect of food, so it actually burns more calories to digest than any of the other macronutrients. It's not super significant, but that is still kind of a point. But mainly my point with the protein is more so the body composition side of things. It's also going to be really helpful for improving your insulin sensitivity. It can help manage blood sugar a little bit better, kind of decrease the spike from certain carbs that would typically like spike your blood sugar a little bit higher, which can help you manage insulin, things like that. So protein is going to be the very first one. And it's also really helpful too for, like I said, just keeping you more full and satisfied. In terms of carbs and fats, so we'll have our calories, you have your protein. Again, I will link some more videos below with like kind of how to determine where your calories and your protein, etc. should be. But once we have those, then we can look at, okay, do we want to say get more detailed into the carbs and fats and those ratios? So when I say ratios, I mean basically if we have 1600 calories and we have a certain percentage that's protein, well, what percent of our calories is now going to be carbs and what percent is going to be fat? So this honestly just kind of, it depends. And everything in fitness I feel like depends, but I'm going to try to kind of give just like some good overview here. Let me pull back up. So one thing that you have to do is really see what works for you and how you feel best. Try not to kind of get into all the hype around certain different diets and just do what makes you feel the best. A couple of considerations though here that I would highly keep in mind is going to be, number one, how you train. And what you need for like that performance to be optimal and that recovery to be optimal. So for example, if you're doing like weightlifting and some higher intensity things like that, your body is needing glycogen, because the thing with fuel sources for the body is depending on what kind of activity you're doing, your body pulls from different fuel. And those quick short bursts, like for example, a rep of weightlifting, your body wants to pull from your glycogen stores because it's a very quick energy source. Whereas more so like endurance runners, you might be able to get away with not having as much of that available because your body has that time to kind of dig into those fat stores. And that doesn't mean that it's optimal for fat burning, because we have to look at the total energy balance of the day, but that's not what this video is about. Anyways though, so you do have to look at what kind of training you do, and because the thing is with wanting to change your body composition, you also want to be optimizing your performance and your recovery, because that's where a lot of those changes are going to come with your body. So you don't want to go zero carb if you're trying to also perform and recover well with weight training. But then another thing that we do have to look at is things like insulin sensitivity. Because if you are like a little bit insulin resistant, or your blood sugar levels are really high at the time or anything like that, it might be a thing where, okay, maybe carbs would be more optimal for you in terms of like performance recovery, but maybe at this time, maybe we need to spend some time in a little bit of a higher fat ratio to improve that insulin sensitivity and then add the carbs back in. So it does kind of depend, but bottom line, kind of like doing what really feels good for you. One way that you could do that, you could test your blood glucose. Not going to get into that here. You could see, okay, how do I feel after I eat these meals? How am I performing? How am I recovering? How am I progressing in general? Again, not going too into depth on that for this video. Bottom line for this video is energy balance is really going to be the big picture here, but macro ratios can and do help us kind of really fine tune our goals in terms of our body composition, our performance, our recovery, things like that, especially like with body composition. If you're just tracking calories and you're only eating 40 grams of protein a day, that's not going to be as optimal as if you got in enough protein for your body. And we were actually supporting that muscle tissue and helping you shift your body composition and all of those things. So macros can be a really good way to get more detailed in there. It can also be a really, really good way, like I said, to maximize performance and recovery. And then also it is such a good learning tool to see what foods have what macros, what foods and what macro splits make you feel best, what helps, you know, your digestion the most, what helps your performance, your recovery the most, what does a portion size look like, and how many calories of this food versus that food, because, you know, an avocado is going to be a lot more calorie dense than like rice, because fats have 9 calories per gram versus rice would be like 4 calories per gram. Not 4 calories per gram of rice, 4 calories per gram of the carbs, because there is going to be a little bit of trace protein and stuff in the rice too. But you can learn all of that. And that doesn't mean, by the way, that like the fats, just because they're more energy dense, are bad. That's not what that means. Fats are actually very important to have in there. And that's one other point. If you do choose to like track your macros or your calories, make sure that you're at least still getting in enough of each one. Like even if, say, you were tracking your macros, like you still need at least some carbs in there and definitely some fats in there for like hormone production, things like that. And that's really important too with tracking calories. If you're not paying attention to anything else, what if you were eating all carbs and no protein and fats? You know, you're missing out on a lot of nutrients that way as well. In terms of what you should do, I think that if you're new to this, start slow and work into a more detailed approach. So maybe you start with calories and then maybe you go protein and calories. And then from there, maybe you're like, okay, now I want to get more detailed in like my performance and recovery. So then maybe you do protein, carbs, and fat split. Or maybe it's something where you do want to work on your insulin sensitivity, etc., if that's like an issue for you. So then you can kind of get more detailed in there and you can really learn from it, and then you can just kind of like continue, whether it be that there's periods of time when you're just tracking calories and protein, periods of time where you are eating more intuitive and just using that knowledge that you've learned from macros, periods of time where you're going really hard with being more detailed. But I would just kind of start small and like work into it. But to answer the question of which one is better, I personally would say obviously that more detailed approach is going to be more optimal for you, but don't feel like that you have to start there immediately. Like I said, you can kind of work into it and it's going to be such a great learning tool, and it's something that you can then take with you for when you're not being as detailed, to just use that knowledge to eat more intuitively for your goals. So yeah, that's going to be that. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you for watching. I hope that you found that helpful. Like I said, I will link a couple other helpful videos relating kind of around some things that I said below. But if you did enjoy it, please be sure to give this a thumbs up and subscribe below. Feel free to comment any questions that you guys have. But yeah, I really hope that you guys enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next video.